Hi guys, we are working on chapter 2, lesson 4, and the topic is multiplying integers. So have your 2-4 study guide out in front of you and let's get started. So this lesson is looking at multiplying integers, and remember, integers are basically just positive and negative whole numbers. So far we've looked at adding and subtracting integers. We're going to take a look at multiplying integers. So if you want to put on the side of your study guide, well, actually the rules are on here already, so I don't think we need to write them down extra. But there's two big rules for multiplying and multiplying integers that are positive or negative numbers. So the first rule is when you're multiplying integers with different signs, the product of two integers with different signs is negative. So in other words, if you're multiplying numbers that have different signs and there's like a -3 times a negative or a +5, the answer to this is negative. It would be a -15. So you're going to multiply it like normal, and you're going to keep your answer as a negative. Now, I like to look at this as a single odd negative. It's really sad. This negative Nancy 3 is really sad. And it has no other like friend that's also negative to bond with and kind of go through its problems together, cheer up, and become positive. So it stays negative, okay? Now, when you multiply integers with the same sign, the answer is going to be positive. So if we look at the same exact number problem, but we have two negatives, so a -3 times a -5, I like to think of it as these two negatives, they need a friend, right? You've got a little negative guy, all sad, all bummed out, and another guy's all bummed out. But when they come together and they can talk about their problems, they can cheer each other up and go through those problems together, and they become positive. So that's a +15. So in other words, if you see pairs of negative, think of two negatives coming together and making that positive. But if there's no pair, then that little negative is just by itself and stuck and alone, and it stays negative. And so two negatives together make a positive. One negative by itself stays negative. Okay, so there's some examples here where you've got a +4 times a -3, that equals -12. And then you've got -8 times +5, still just one negative in your numbers. And so your answer is -40. For example 2 here, we've got 6 times 6, which they're both positive, and it's the same sign. That's 36. And then you've got a -7 times a -4. Two negatives together, think of these two together coming together and making a positive. So the answer is 28. So let's do a few practice here. If you want to pause and try a few, you're welcome to. We're going to do 1 through 6. Okay. So -5 times 7, that would be -35. We're going to keep it a negative because there's only one negative. Number 2, there's only one negative, so our answer is going to be negative. 6 times 9 is 54, so my answer is -54. Number 3, one negative, my answer is -40. Okay, I've got two negatives. Two negatives together make a positive, so this answer is +24. For number 5, one negative, so that's going to be -55. Two negatives together, -15 times -4 makes +16. All right, let's take a look at 13. If we have several numbers, more than two numbers we're multiplying. Now, when you're looking at this, you're looking for pairs to come together to make that positive. So if I have two negatives here, they can pair up and become a positive, right? So 4 times 4, -4 times -4 is +16, right? So 16, this can become 16 times 5, which would be 80, and it's a positive 80. Another way of looking at it would just be to look at this and say, okay, I know my two negatives are gonna pair up and make a positive, but if I do the commutative property where I multiply in different order, I could do -4 times 5, and that's -20. -20 times -4 is 80. So you can do it in different ways. Now on your homework, especially a problem like this, I would want to see this step right here and then your answer. So make sure you write the problem, the work, and then your answer. Number 14, we're gonna work this out. So we've got 6 times -7, that would be -42, and then times 2, so I've got one negative, and that would be -84. That's your answer there. Number 15, I've got 3 negatives. So these 3 negatives, still odd amount of negatives, my answer is gonna be a negative. But if I do -10 times -4, that's positive 40. But then I multiply -6, and so when I do 40 times -6, it's -240. Okay, I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna do 19 through 21. You can work those out as well, and you can check the answers in a second. Okay, let's take a look at how you did. So 19 is -66, 20 is 210, and 21 is -96. Let's take a look at the next page. So let's talk about when we have some variables mixed in with our equation. So if we are looking at an expression where there are variables mixed in there and also numbers, and it's all being multiplied, for example, let's take a look at this one, number 1, -3a times -12b. So remember, we don't put the multiplication sign in between when we multiply with negatives. So all this is basically just saying -3 times a times -12 times b. So we can actually combine and work out the numbers and multiply those. So we're using the commutative property, switching the things around, and combining our like terms. So -3 times -12, we can work that out, and that would become 36. And then a and b, we don't know the value of a, and we don't know the value of b, so we're just gonna bring that down and write it as ab. And so our answer, or that's simplified from this expression, is 36ab. Now, this isn't the actual answer because we don't know what a and we don't know what b is, but we can simplify it and reduce it down to the least amount of numbers and variables as possible. So let's take a look at number 1. We're going to simplify these expressions. So notice it doesn't say solve because we can't actually find the answer, but we can simplify it, reduce it down to the least amount of numbers written and the least amount of variables kind of appearing. So I can multiply this out. 9 times -3 is -27, and then I'm going to bring my w down. So -27w. 2 times 9 is 18, and then I'm going to bring my e, and then I'm going to bring my f down. So my simplified version of this is 18ef. Number 3, -8 times 7 is -56, and then bring my m down. Okay. All right, so let's try these. This one would be 28s. This one would be -50 PQ. This one would be 48N. This one would be -45 AB. This one would be 36XY. And let's take a look at 9. So we've got this -C. Anytime you see a negative variable, like a -x, that's really the same thing as -1 times x. So what do you think -c would be? -c would be the same thing as -1 times c. So if you think of this as -1 times c times 11 times d, Well, 11 times -1 is -11. And then I have C and D, so I can bring that down. So my simplified version of that would be -11 CD. Notice how I'm bringing that negative out to the very front, writing my number, and then writing my variables. So the pattern is always numbers go first, and then the letters. All right, for these down here, we're just gonna sub in our values for the variables and solve it like we did earlier, okay? So we would rewrite the expression by replacing x with the value that it is, which is -4 because it tells us up here. And so we can work this out. 4 times -4 is -16. That's my answer. 3 times y, which y is 8, so I'm going to plug that in. 3 times 8 is 24. -12 times x, so -12 times -4. 2 negatives make a positive. This is 48. -6 times y, that's 8. -6 times 8 is -48. xy, replace it with the value. And so I've got -4 times 8. That would be -32. Okay, I've got a -x. So think about this. -x means I already have this negative out here, but then x is negative, right? X is a -4. So I've got a negative x times 8. Well, what do 2 negatives make? It makes a positive, right? So this a negative x, a 4 would just be 4. 4 times 8 is 32. So this one's kind of tricky, but 15 is just a positive 32. 16, -2 times -4 times 8. So -2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 8 is 64. Again, 5 times -4 times 8. 5 times -4 is -20. -20 times 8 is -160. Okay, this last one down here, 18. -3. I'm going to replace everything in here. -4, and then I've got a negative y, so it's a negative, and then y is 8, so this is a -8. So I've got 3 negatives here. My answer is going to be a negative. 12 times 8 is 96, so it's a -96. That's my answer. Okay, hopefully this wasn't too overwhelming. The rule, I think, is a little more simple here. If you need more practice, go to the Khan Academy link that I've posted on RenWeb. That should bring you directly to a link that you can sign up for an account that enters into my class. If you enter into my class, there are assignments given that are related to this topic. So there's adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, negatives that you can do. So even if it's just 10 minutes a day, practicing it a little bit is going to help these rules kind of sink in, and then you'll just do them faster, okay? If multiplication is rusty for you, you don't remember your multiplication table very well, then I would recommend that you go online, Google multiplication online games, and just play some games. Use that time of if you were playing video games or I don't know, searching the internet or doing something in your leisure time. Why not play a game that's going to help you get better with your multiplication table and then help you in the future? So you can Google like multiplication online games. Do like 5 or 10 minutes of that. Just play a little bit of those games and kind of help the multiplication table sink in a little bit more so that when you do your math, it just rolls off faster, and then you don't have to sit there and be like, okay, let me go through 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, right? And go through all of them. So we want to let those facts kind of sink into our head as well. Anyway, good job, and I'll see you next class. Bye.